No guns, he's sitting over at the table over there. So, two guns, this guy's name was Two Guns with Two Guns. So he goes over to No Guns with No Guns and he says, "Are you No Guns with No Guns?" He says, "Yes, I'm No Guns with No Guns." Well, he says, "I'm Two Guns with Two Guns. And I'm taking out my two guns and I'm pointing at you, Mr. No Gun with No Guns. And Mr. No Gun with No Guns, I want you to stand up." Well, of course, Mr. No Gun with No Guns, he knows what this Mr. Two Gun with Two Guns is pointing two guns at him, so he's going to stand up. And he says, "No, Mr. No Gun with No Guns," he says, "I'm Mr. Two Gun with Two Guns, and I'm pointing two guns at you, Mr. No Gun with No Guns. I want you to take down your pants, Mr. No Gun with No Guns." Well, Mr. No Gun with No Guns, he's got two guns with two guns pointing two guns at him. He says, what is he going to do? He's going to take down his pants. Eh? So he does. So he takes down his pants, and Mr. Two Guns with Two Guns says, "Mr. No Guns with No Guns, I got two guns pointing at you, Mr. No Gun with No Guns. I want you to shit on the floor." Well, Mr. No Gun with No Guns, he's got Mr. Two Gun with Two Guns looking at him like that. He says, I'm going to do that, definitely. He says, so he does do that. So, now Mr. Two Gun with Two Guns, he says, "I'm Mr. No Gun with No Guns. He says, "I'm pointing two guns at you." He says, "I want you to eat that." He says, "Well, I'm Mr. No Gun with No Guns." He says, "Mr. Two Gun with Two Guns with two guns pointed at him." He says, "What is he going to do?" He eats it. So, Mr. Two Gun with Two Guns, he's pretty proud of himself. He goes up to the bar and he's laughing with the people at the bar like that. He said, Mr. No Gun with No Guns sneak up behind him and he grabs his guns. Now we got Mr. No Gun with Two Guns and Mr. Two Gun with No Guns. So Mr. No Gun with Two Guns says, "Mr. Two Gun with No Guns, I got two guns pointed at you. I want you to stand up." So Mr. Two Gun with No Guns, he knows that Mr. No Gun with Two Guns has got two guns pointed at Mr. Two Gun with No Guns. So he stands up. He says, "Now Mr. Two Gun with No Guns, I got two guns pointed at you and I'm Mr. No Gun with Two Guns." He said, "I want you to take down your pants." I said, well, Mr. Two Gun with No Guns, he knows Mr. No Gun with Two Guns has got two guns pointed at him. He says, "I take down my pants." He says, "You take them down." Well, he said, "Now Mr. Two Gun with No Guns," he says, "I'm Mr. No Gun with Two Guns." He said, "I got two guns pointed, I want you to shit on the floor." Okay, he says, Mr. Two Gun with No Guns, he's got Mr. Two Gun, he says, "I'm Mr. Two Gun with No Guns," and this is Mr. No Gun with Two Guns, he's pointing two guns at me. He said, "I do what he says." Now Mr. Two Gun with No Guns looks at me, Mr. No Gun with Two Guns, and he says, he points two guns at me, and he says, "Mr. Two Gun with No Guns," he says, "I'm Mr. No Gun with Two Guns, I got two guns pointed." He said, "I want you to eat that." Well, Mr. Two Gun with No Guns, he knows that Mr. No Gun with Two Guns got two guns pointed at him, Mr. Two Guns with No Guns. So he does that. He says to this pen to come into the bar, he says, "Did I know Mr. Two Gun with Two Guns?" He says, "I'm Mr. No Gun with No Guns. We had lunch together one day here in this bar."
Funny.